Despite overwhelming evidence, the UN still did not officially accept the fact that Eritrean forces are destroying Tigray. The UN officials knew electricity, telephone, and internet services in Tigray had been cut throughout the war, its people separated, incommunicado. The war, that is still active, is killing innocent civilians and destroying the few factories Tigray had. Here is how the United Nations officials describe the situation when Tigrayans are dying of hunger and bullets.
An update from Ethiopia, where we're being told by our humanitarian colleagues that although access is limited in areas where conflict is ongoing, humanitarian assistance has started to gradually trickle in to Tigray province. The World Health Organization has dispatched emergency health supplies to treat more than 10,000 patients for 3 months. Additional medical supplies are on the way. The World Food Program managed to deliver food for 35,000 refugees in Adi Harush and Maj Ayani camps this week, but the convoy to Histats and Shimelba refugee camps have returned due to insecurity in the area. Water treatment chemicals were also provided to internally displaced people in northern Amhara as well as western Tigray. Water, sanitation, hygiene, and non-food items are also pre-positioned in northern Amhara and western Afar for 5,000 internally displaced people. And our colleagues...
This one on Ethiopia. Humanitarian access has started to trickle in, as you said, to Tigray. What's coming ahead here? This is a positive development, but is this a sign of? Are you encouraged by the access that you've received, and do you hope to get more?
Yes and yes is a short answer. It's not that we hope to get more; we need more. There is an assessment, 2 assessment missions led by our OCHA colleagues currently on the ground, looking at the needs for much wider help, and also it is important for us to have these assessment missions to do their work and come back because we've not had the information that we need to paint an exact picture of the humanitarian needs in Tigray. I think I use the term trickle in, when you're thirsty, a trickle is better than no water, but it really doesn't solve the problem. We're going to go to the screen, I think, Iftikhar and then Evelyn.
Thank you, Steph. You have given us a good picture of the humanitarian side of the crisis in Tigray. But what about the underlying conflict, you see? Where are the efforts stand to resolve the underlying conflict?
Well, the various regional organizations and sub-regional organizations, whether it's the African Union and IGAD, have been involved. We support wholeheartedly those efforts. And we've always called for a genuine reconciliation in Ethiopia, in which every community that makes up the country can feel as an equal part of the country.
Here is another video that the UN officials chose to believe the corrupt African Union and IGAD officials' opinion than the evidence provided by US and European intelligence officials.
I understand that at the present moment, you ladies and gentlemen of the press are particularly concerned with Ethiopia. Indeed, in our discussions today, we highlighted the importance of a peaceful Ethiopia for the prosperity of its people and the Horn of Africa region. And I reiterate the full support of the United Nations to the African Union initiative and the work of the 3 envoys mandated by President Ramaphosa as chair of the African Union. Our immediate priority is the well-being of the people of Tigray and ensuring those in need urgently receive humanitarian assistance. And we are mobilizing for that purpose the full capacities of the United Nations. And we are mobilizing for that purpose the full capacities of the United Nations. Once again, I wish to insist on unfettered access of humanitarian assistance, the swift resumption of the rule of law in a secure environment and in full respect for human rights, paving the way for a true and lasting reconciliation. And together with our African Union partner and others in the region, we stand ready to provide full support to Ethiopian-led initiatives to encourage inclusive dialogue and foster reconciliation. In conclusion, I want to reaffirm our strong commitment of the African Union and the United Nations to keep working closely together to support peace, security, sustainable development and human rights across the continent, and I thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We'll now take questions. Edie Lederer, Associated Press.
Thank you very much, Mr. President and Mr. Secretary General. On behalf of the United Nations Correspondents Association, for doing this hybrid briefing. We appreciate it, and we hope you'll do more. Mr. President, does the African Union really have no power to intervene in Tigray, even as Ethiopia shoots at UN staffers, atrocities are feared, and people in Tigray are beginning to starve? And Mr. Secretary General and Mr. President.
James Bays, Al Jazeera.
A question to you both on Ethiopia. Almost exactly a year ago, the Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. As ever, that award took place on Human Rights Day. Yet 1 year on, his government has been accused, and I quote the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, of gross human rights violations and abuses. Is it time to get tougher on Ethiopia and time for the Security Council of the UN to act?
Monsieur le Président. Okay. Or maybe Secretary General, if you want to go.
I think this is the moment to have a serious discussion with the Ethiopian authorities on, as I mentioned, reestablishment of the rule of law, full respect for human rights, active reconciliation, and unimpeded humanitarian access. This is what we are doing. And I have to say that in my last discussion with the Prime Minister, there was a full acceptance by the Prime Minister of the need to move into this direction. This has been discussed in the Security Council. It's up to the members of the Security Council to decide whatever action they will want to launch. But our main objective is to establish with the Ethiopian government a functional relationship allowing for these objectives to be achieved.
Michelle Nichols, Reuters.
Hi, Secretary General, Mr. President, thank you for the briefing. Secretary General, I'd just like to follow up with you on Ethiopia, please. What can you tell us about what the United Nations knows about the fighting that is taking place there? What happens if the UN cannot get aid access? And has the UN seen any evidence of Eritrean troops fighting in
Ethiopia? First of all, in relation to Ethiopia, we have no proof of the presence of Eritrean troops inside Ethiopia. I confronted the Prime Minister with that question, and he guaranteed to me that they have not entered Tigrayan territory, that the only area where they are is the area that corresponded to the disputed territory between the two countries that in the peace agreement was decided to give back to Eritrea. So this was the testimony that was given. disputed territory between the two countries that in the peace agreement was decided to give back to Eritrea. So this was the testimony that was given to me by the Prime Minister when I confronted him exactly with that question. We have information of sporadic fighting in different areas of the country, but we also have the information that there was, in the last few days, a progressive increase of security and control. But again, these are information that I am not in a position to fully confirm. The only thing I can say is that after the first agreement that was not possible to implement immediately, that we have now a second agreement for joint assessment missions in relation to humanitarian needs between the UN and Ethiopia to make sure that there is full access to the whole of the territory and full capacity to start humanitarian operations based on real needs and without any kind of discrimination.
The UN also has a lot of eyewitnesses on the presence of Eritrean forces in Tigray lands since the beginning of the war on November 4th, 2020. Its officials have interviewed Tigray refugees in Sudan, but it chose to be silent. It's high time the United Nations take action. This is international war against a region in Ethiopia, where Ethiopia is fully supported by another neighboring country to attack its own people. Tigrayans are dying of starvation. They could not escape because the Sudan border is sealed by Ethio-Eritrean forces. They are simply wilting and yielding to death, hungry and thirsty. This is genocide by starvation. It must be stopped. The Ethiopian and Eritrean leaders must be put to trials for crimes against humanity and genocide.